Thomas was one of the original 12 disciples, and the phrase doubting Thomas, which can be perceived as quite the insult sometimes, it came from him. But before we get into those details, it's important to know more about Thomas, as he wasn't just what his nickname unfortunately suggests. When Jesus was heading out to raise Lazarus from the dead, the disciples got word that there were some people wanting to stone him on the way. Thomas took Jesus going anyway, not choosing to change his plans. He took that to mean that Jesus was making the choice to be deceased with Lazarus, thinking that was going to be part of the plan to restore God's kingdom. He thought Jesus was going to his death. And how did Thomas respond? Well, in John 11:16, we read that Thomas said, "Let's go to and die with Jesus." He had enough faith and belief to be willing to go and die if that's what would happen. Thomas believed in Jesus enough to the extent that he was ready for martyrdom. He was not a lukewarm man when it came to his faith. He had a close relationship with Jesus and was ready to follow him all the way to his death. And then later in his life, Thomas went on to evangelize Eastern Asia, and he is known as the man in the history of the church to bring the good news of the gospel to India during the first century. He was a man who was serious about his faith. So where did the nickname come from, and how was Thomas transformed by his experience? After the death and resurrection of Jesus, that's where the nickname originates. Thomas stated that he would not believe the other disciples' reports of seeing the risen Lord. He said, "I won't believe it unless I see the nail wounds in his hands, put my fingers into them, and place my hand into the wound at his side." Sound familiar? Do you know anyone, maybe the guy in the mirror, who said, "I won't believe it until I can see it with my own eyes. I won't believe it until I can touch it with my own hands"? That's pretty common. And then when Jesus appeared to Thomas and the other disciples, Thomas saw with his eyes, Thomas touched with his hands, and then he proclaimed, "My Lord and my God." Jesus made a point of singling out Thomas to show this man who had doubt that he really was the risen Messiah. And it certainly was a transformational moment in the life of Thomas. And notice that Jesus didn't rebuke Thomas for having doubt. He didn't scold him. What he did was speak one of the most powerful and important lines in Scripture. It's John 20:29, which reads, "You believe because you have seen me. Blessed are those who believe without seeing me." Now, while Thomas gets the nickname, it's worth noting that the other disciples initially had doubt about the resurrection as well. After the women found the empty tomb and told the disciples about it, we learn from Luke 24:9, but the story sounded like nonsense to the men, so they didn't believe it. God can use our doubt as a tool for our transformation. Just as Thomas went on to evangelize Asia, we can be transformed as well. It may not be as dramatic as sharing the gospel on a new continent, but it can be as transformative in our lives and the lives of our friends and family. Remember Romans 12:2. Don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect. To be transformed in the way you think, it's going to require, new thinking. And asking questions, studying issues, working through challenging topics, that's all part of the process. What this means is that doubt is okay. Questions are okay. It's natural to have questions, to have times when things don't make sense and you want to dig deeper. It's understandable to read things that may be confusing and need conversations with other people, analyze issues more, learn from your questions. When you do that, your doubt can become a powerful tool used in your transformation into the person that God created you to be. Your doubt can be what leads you into a whole new understanding of God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect. So don't run away from your doubts. Run towards them and be transformed. Now, before you go, be sure to subscribe to this show, rate it, and leave a review. Your ratings and your reviews, they really help other people find the show, so thank you for that. And head over to significantman.com and sign up for the Intel email series. Every week, I write a short, fast email, comes out on Monday, something to get you through the week, sometimes devotion, sometimes inspiration, sometimes just a quick thing for you to think about as you're going through your week. So head over to significantman.com and sign up for Intel today. All right, enjoy the next show.